Good evening, everybody. Christine Barconi and Justin Holbrook here in the NBC4i Streaming Center. After a tough loss for the Buckeyes, they fall in the national championship game to Alabama. Final score was 52-24. Okay. Oh, sorry. Justin grabbing the microphone there. Forgot to give it to him before. So, tough loss for the Buckeyes. Great season. Unfortunately, that Alabama offense really just proved to be a little bit too much, a lot too much for the Buckeyes tonight, Justin.
Yeah, and they were too much for everybody this season. Alabama's offense is historically good, one of, if not the best offenses ever in college football, and they showed why tonight. I mean, it's hard to find an answer to what they do. They get the ball out so quickly. They have so many weapons. Mac Jones, a great quarterback. He had an unreal game, 464 yards. To put that in perspective, that's one more yard than Joe Burrow had in last year's national championship. He actually tied Joe Burrow's college football playoff touchdown record in a championship game. He had 5 passing touchdowns. Ohio State just didn't have an answer for Alabama's offense, but nobody does. You know, nobody did this season, and that wasn't surprising. It was just Ohio State's offense couldn't keep up with Alabama either. So it's a tough way to end the season. But I tweeted this out too. At least for Ohio State, the fans, the players, the coaches, you can be happy in the fact that you know that you got to play this season, a season that maybe nobody knew if it was going to happen or not, and it ended up happening. And the good news for Ohio State is that they got to play Clemson in the semifinal, get their revenge from last year, and prove to everybody that they were the second best team in the country. I know it's a hard consolation to take, but at least people know that Ohio State deserved to be in the top 4. Was a top 2 team in the country, but Alabama was just that much better than Ohio State today.
Certainly. I mean, just watching their offense, it was just too much for anybody, like you said, to handle this season, and Ohio State obviously proven that it was a little bit too much for them as well. Justin, talk a little bit about we had some significant injuries during this game as well. Unfortunately, we lost Trey Sermon super early in the game, so that was a hit to the Buckeye offense as well.
No doubt. This is an Ohio State team that averages 272 yards rushing. They ended up with 154, but like you said, they lost Trey Sermon on the first drive of the game. He suffered that left shoulder injury, had to be taken to a hospital is what ESPN was reporting. So the burden really fell on Master Teague. And Ohio State, their line did as good as they could, but Trey Sermon, it's hard to match what he provides. Master Teague is a good running back. He's a physical running back, but he's not the same running back that Trey Sermon is. Trey Sermon is excellent at the second level, and Ohio State really missed that. I'm not sure it really matters, though. I mean, at a certain point, Ohio State was going to have to get away from the run because they were just running out of time to catch up with Alabama's offense. So even if they had Trey Sermon, they would have loved to have him. He's a really good receiving running back as well. They missed that part of the game too, but I'm not sure that they would have been able to keep up with Alabama even if they had him the whole game. And then on the other side, Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, first wide receiver to win the award since 1991, wide receiver that is. So he had 215 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns, 12 catches, all in the first half. All of those broke first half records. And then on the second play of the second half, he gets injured, gets a hand injury, and then he goes to the locker room and never returned. So both teams really suffered massive injuries. Jalen Waddle tried to play through that ankle injury, came on the field, hobbled off several times. He was not 100%. He wasn't even close to 100%. So it's tough for Ohio State to know that you had some guys that didn't get to play this game. They were without Tommy Togiai. They were without a couple key guys on the defensive line. But Alabama was without key players too after suffering injuries to Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, and they still threw for 464 yards against Ohio State.
I think it was just very clear to anybody watching just how incredible that Alabama offense was. That's just basically kind of, it sums up the entire game. Alabama offense, just absolutely incredible. What they put out there was just an amazing product and just proved too much for Ohio State this year. But like you said, it was nice that they got to prove in that semifinal game that they did deserve to be there by, besting Clemson by a lot. Right now, you guys, we are waiting for head coach Ryan Day to start his post-game press conference, and we'll also be hearing from, I believe, Justin Fields as well. Let me check the email here. What did you think of Fields' performance, Justin?
Yeah, he had to have a performance that equaled what he did against Clemson, if not better, and he had a very average day by his standards. He'll be the first one to tell you that, I'm sure, in the post-game press conference. I mean, he completed 51% of his passes. That's a career low at Ohio State. Only 17 completions, also a career low for him at Ohio State. He needed to have the game of his life like he did against Clemson. He threw 6 touchdowns against the Tigers, and today he just didn't have it. I'm not sure if it was the ribs that were bothering him or he was just uncomfortable in the night or something that Alabama presented on defense that made him a little bit off, but he wasn't right the whole game. Something was off about the way that he was playing. Had a couple of nice throws, a couple of big moments, some nice runs, but in the end, he needed to have a huge game, and it just wasn't there for him.
Yeah, certainly not. Justin, looking back on this season, it was just, kind of obviously good to be there. Not how anybody wanted it to end up, but at least getting there to the big dance after fighting so hard was a really nice thing for these players and the fans who actually got to attend. At least some of them did this game.
Yeah, and some of the guys got a chance to come back because they committed to the NFL, or they thought that that was going to be their last game ever in football, because not a lot of guys get to go to the next level and play. So at least they got this one season. It was a shortened season, but at least they got it, and they got one more chance to play with their friends, their best friends, their brothers, show the nation how good Ohio State is, and show themselves that it was worth it. All the time that they put in the off season to have a season. And to go through everything that they did with COVID and guys having to miss games after testing positive or being quarantined or injuries, everything, at least at the end of the day, they got to have this season, show the country what they're all about. And I don't think that they're going to regret anything, even this loss to Alabama. There's nothing to hang your head about. This is an all-time college football team that they lost to tonight, and Ohio State is going to they're going to lick their wounds, and they'll be back. They'll be back in this moment, no doubt.
Certainly. Justin, Alabama's players there that we were watching, I was watching them for the first time. I didn't really keep up with SEC football this year. How many of them are going to go in the first round from at least their offense?
It's unreal how good.
Just so good.
How good their team is. It's hard to put a number on how many guys are going to be taken in the draft, let alone the first round. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, Naji Harris, their running back, probably will be. He had 79 yards rushing and 79 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns on the night for him. Mac Jones showed how good he is this year, quarterback. Not sure if he's going to come back for another season or decide to go to the NFL, what that's going to look like for him. Their top 2 receivers, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, they'll be the top 2 receivers taken probably in the NFL draft. And then they have guys sprinkled all across their roster that are going to be first round, second round, third round guys. Alabama always does that, as does Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And the thing that they're going to do next year is just restock, reload, and be right back in the situation. And don't be surprised if you see these same 2 teams in the Final Four next year.
Absolutely. It's kind of been consistent like that for the past, what is this? So Ohio State won 20, it's 5 years. This is the 5th year anniversary? Or 6th? Or the college football playoff?
Oh, so the inaugural year, yeah, that was 2014-15 when Ohio State won. And it's crazy to think that this was Alabama's 5th time out of 7 years being in the national championship game. So, yeah, I mean, it's just unreal to think of the history that they've made in the college football playoff. Forget everything else, but tonight Nick Saban becomes the winningest college football coach in terms of championships. His 6th with Alabama, beating Bear Bryant, and 7th overall with that title he had at LSU. So Ryan Day is hoping to get in that conversation, but Nick Saban is the cream of the crop when it comes to college football coaches.
Absolutely. Justin, what do you think we're going to hear from Coach Day and Justin Fields here in a few minutes? Do you think Justin will talk about his future at all, or do we think just talk about tonight, or do you think they'll be looking forward to next year?
I think Justin Fields will reflect on what this season has meant to him. I don't think he's going to talk about the NFL draft, although he will be a top 5 player taken in the draft. I think he's going to reflect on what this season meant to him, probably get some questions about his performance tonight. I'm sure he's not happy with it. But I think at the end of the day, he's going to focus really on what this season, playing this season, meant to him, because had Ohio State not had a season, he probably wouldn't have come back. He probably would have just gone straight to the NFL and not had this season. And we would have missed out on seeing one of the best quarterbacks ever to put on an Ohio State uniform perform. And he gave us a treat throughout the season. He had ups and downs, but he showed just how much this season meant to him, taking that shot to the ribs, playing through that injury against Clemson, coming back in this game and playing today. I know it wasn't his best game, and he'll tell you that, but I think he'll say that it was worth it in the end. Even though they lost tonight, he'll say it was worth it. And you'll hear the same thing from Ryan Day. Coach Day, throughout the season, he said, I save the reflection for when the season's over, because he doesn't want to get caught up in reflecting on what's been accomplished. Mm-hmm. He's always focused on what's next. Well, right now, what's next for Ohio State is taking a little bit of a break and I think he'll realize that, and he'll tell you that this was a team that he's not going to forget. It's only his second year. It's hard. It's easy to forget that Ryan Day is only in his second year as Ohio State's head coach, and these guys, the guys that are going to leave the program, they meant a lot to him, and what they were able to do this year is special. And
here's Coach Day right now.
At the top of it is it starts with him, and he's been a great coach.
Well, here's Coach Day right now, so we'll have to listen to what he has to say.
Coach Day, then go to questions. To ask a question during the session, please raise your hand using the raise your hand icon within Zoom. If and when your question is selected, the host will unmute your microphone and say your name. Once your question has been answered, your microphone will be muted and your hand will be lowered. Coach Day, please give us a brief opening statement, and then we will go to questions.
Yeah, tough night. I'm proud of our team, proud of the seniors, proud of the year that we've had, but that was a tough night. A lot to unravel there, but when you look a team in the eye in the locker room after the long season we've been through, it's hard to start focusing on one or two plays or whatever it was, because they've been through so much. Proud of the legacy that the seniors have left behind, but you got to give credit to Alabama. Certainly a very good team, and they played really well tonight.
Our first question is from Cameron Buford.
Hey, Coach, Los Angeles News Observer here. I want to ask you about the game difference. You guys play 7 games versus their 12 games in the season. Do you think those extra games allowed them more time to get comfortable with each other versus your 7 games? You guys still working on some stuff maybe?
I think, this season has been, crazy, disruptive, all of the above. And, I think, some games being canceled, not being canceled. That's what it was. And, what I tried not to do and what we tried not to do is focus on those things and have built-in excuses. We just kept pushing forward, not having guys available. And then, like you said, get into a rhythm. I thought going into the semifinal game against Clemson, we hadn't played our best game yet. And, we needed to play our best game tonight against Alabama, and we didn't.
Our next question is from Austin Ward with Letterman Row. Go ahead, Austin.
Ryan, I know that this just ended, half an hour ago, but I wonder, where do you go from here? This year was so long. You guys worked so hard. I can't imagine that you want to just go straight back into off-season workouts. What's the next step now?
Yeah, Austin, we need a break. We need to get away. Kids are guys and their families, and we all just need a break. And we've already started to put together the schedule for the spring, but we all need to get away for a while. This has been a long road. Guys miss their families, and they deserve time to be with them. And so we'll unwind for a little while, have an opportunity to reflect on what this season's been, and then get back into it. But you're right. I mean, you can't just go back to work here. There needs some time to rest and reflect.
Our next question is from Dennis Dye with CBS Sports. Dennis, go ahead.
Ryan, you've done this a lot of times, game plan for a game, but what's it like, looking at film and tendencies and everything else against Alabama and then actually facing them, facing all that firepower? What's it like to deal with it?
Well, no, they do. They're very, good schematically, and they have really good personnel. And so, it's one thing to have a good play. It's another thing to execute it. And, we didn't do that, well enough on either side of the ball tonight.
Okay.
Next question is from Joey Kaufman. Joey, go ahead with your question. Joey, are you there? Okay, we'll move ahead. Then with our next question from Pranav Rama. Go ahead with your question.
Sorry about that. Coach, second half, why do you think the game slipped away from you guys?
I don't think there's one thing. I think it's several things. You know, we didn't finish a couple of those drives, didn't get the fourth down conversion, 2 of them, and they continued to make big plays. And you know, they got up, I think, 4 scores on us, and we couldn't quite keep up. And so it was just a combination of things. I thought there was a point there where if we had got to stop and got into the end zone, that you know, we had an opportunity to get back in within a couple scores, maybe get it down to 10, and so, you know, but that didn't happen, you know, and I just think it's a combination of things.
Our next question is from Stephen Hellwagon. Stephen, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Coach, I know that just minutes after his last game, or presumably his last game, it's tough to take stock of what Justin Fields meant for this program, but just your thoughts in a nutshell, if this is it for him, 20-2, I believe, as a starter, and just the courage and everything he showed and leadership he brought to your program really kind of bridged the gap for you getting this program and your part of it started.
Yeah, I mean, Justin's been unbelievable. He's competitively tough a player as I've been around. You know, for him to go out there and play today, I mean, really shows his toughness and how much he loves his brothers. You know, he still took some shots on that hip, and you know, he was not 100% tonight. You know, he was working through it and made some really good throws, made some gutsy plays. You know, kept us in the game there for a while, but he's an unbelievable player. I love him to death. I'm gonna miss him.
Our next question is from Nathan Baird. Nathan, go ahead with your question.
Ryan, you knew that with their explosiveness and their balance that I guess you're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing sometimes on defense. But again, just what was the approach and as far as how to play them, the mix of linebackers, mix of defensive backs, what was the choice there, and why do you think they were able to exploit it so well?
Well, you know, we wanted to make sure we didn't change, you know, what we do just fundamentally, but we also had to have some change-ups because, you know, if you just sit there, they're going to pick you apart. But again, I think it goes back to, you know, it's one thing to have some ideas, it's another thing to execute them. And we didn't do that well enough. There was just obviously way too many big plays, and you know, and then on offense, you know, we couldn't go score for score with them, and you know, and then the game gets out of hand. But you know, our guys competed; they play all the way to the end, and you know, I wouldn't have any other group with me. You know, they're a special group of men. But to go back to your question, yeah, I mean, we had some things that we did that we wanted to change it up. We also wanted to make sure we were doing the same things that got us to this point, but clearly it wasn't good enough.
Next question is from Rob Aller. Rob, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Ryan, it's one thing to see a guy on tape, another to see him live. Can you just comment on Devontae Smith? Have you seen anything quite like that? Is he one of the best you've seen? And the pressure of having to score every time as an offensive coach. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, it's that part is tough, and then I think that there's a feeling of if you don't score, you know, you're going to get down, and then like you said, the pressure mounts. You know, we got that turnover early that kind of got us going a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've seen one better than that. I mean, he just seemed to create a lot of separation. He's obviously very fast. He plays stronger than he looks. You know, he's not a very big guy, but his play strength is significant, and he just eats up ground down the field once he gets those strides going. Tremendous ball skills. You know, Heisman Trophy winner and well deserved. He's a great player.
Our next question is from Bill Landis. Bill, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thanks. you said you didn't want to change your defensive plan coming into this game. This vision, the structure of this defense is something you said you wanted to keep in place. Do you think you need to change it? Is it too rigid when you get on the field with a team that has this kind of talent, a team that you're going to see, every year moving forward once you get to this kind of stage?
Well, like I said, we did do some different things. We changed up some of the looks and played some too high, which is not something we typically do a lot of. Pressured some more the last couple of games. So I thought we did mix it up a decent amount. But again, it's another thing to actually execute it. And, when you're playing against elite players, and this is probably one of the better offenses in college football in a long time, the margin for error is tiny. So I think it's probably more the execution. I thought at least, in the first half we did a decent job against the run game, which was a huge emphasis point. We had to stop the run, and they're very, very well balanced. And so that's the challenge when you go against a team like this. But clearly we didn't hold up, well enough in the pass game.
Our next question is from Bill Rabinowitz. Bill, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Ryan. I'm assuming Trey Sermon was a huge part of the offensive game plan. How much of a blow was that to lose him? And could you also address the decision to kick the field goal when it was fourth and goal from the 6, I think?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to lose Trey on the first play of the game, it's just one of those things. Whatever you think what's going to happen in the game, it's probably not going to happen that way. And we lose Trey in the first play of the game. And we certainly missed Tommy Togiai in the game, and a few others. But that is what it is. You got to overcome it. And like I told our guys, nobody feels sorry for you, so you just got to keep pushing forward. It's kind of been the theme of this season. Well, I think if it was 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, I think you probably go for it. But I think it was either on the 5 or the 6, and I think that the percentages there are very low conversion rate. So I just said, let's just take the 3 points and move on.
Our next question is from Carter Hill. Carter, go ahead with your question.
Let's switch to the defense now.
Hey, Coach Day, thanks for taking my call. Looking back on the season, what is the difficulty about the season? I know with the coronavirus and all that, was that the difficult part of the season to keep everybody together?
Yeah. There was a lot that went into that. This is, it's probably an hour answer to that whole thing. But yeah, it's been a lot with these guys. Having no fans, having no season, having games canceled. Yeah, it was a challenge, but wouldn't have it any other way. What these guys have learned, and what our coaching staff has learned, and this whole program has learned about, what our culture is all about. Very, very proud of that. And for the guys who are in the locker room who are going to be coming back, they have something to motivate them in the off season. That feeling of coming off the field. We felt that way coming off the field last year in Clemson. Now we feel the same way coming off the field against Alabama. So I'm going to use that as a motivation, in the off season.
We have time for a few more questions. Let's try Carter Hill once again.
Coach, how would you reflect on Ohio State football, in your opinion, in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the culture of our program, the leadership of our program, the way that our kids fought for a season and then came back, dealt with all the adversity along the way of games being canceled, guys being out. For some programs, there was a lot of guys out early, and they kind of got them back and were able to get into a rhythm. It was very, very difficult for us to do that. We had, the offensive line was out for an extended period of time, and then, in this game we had the defensive line, we had wide receivers, during the Big Ten championship game, and so for us to continually work through all of that and get to this moment right here was an unbelievable success. And we won the game. The goal was not to get here; the goal was to win the game. But all that being said, couldn't be prouder of our culture, what our kids are made of, and where the program's headed.
And our last question for Coach Day will come from Tina Benzi. All right, one last question. We'll try Tim May. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, Ryan, as you look back on it, there were a few times when y'all made it almost look easy going down the field, and then others where it was herky-jerky. And I'm just wondering, as you reflect back, what was it that Alabama was doing defensively, rolling the dice, et cetera, that gave you the most problems? And could you give us an update on Wyatt Davis?
Yeah, Wyatt, just talked to him. He kind of re-injured that knee.
Yeah.
Sore right now. I'm not sure, what the diagnosis is. We'll have to check with our doctors, but he's sore. He's certainly in pain. On offense, the thing for us was I felt like when we got the first down, we kind of got going and we get into our rhythm and our tempo. When we couldn't get those first downs, that's when I think we had 3 and outs in the first half. That hurt us. And then I think we had a couple in the second half as well. And one of the challenges is that, we like to go tempo. But when you go tempo, when you go fast, you put the defense back on the field. And when you go against an offense like this, that's kind of in the back of your mind. And so it was kind of hard for us to get into a rhythm. It was hard for us to get into that kind of tempo. We did a little bit. We got a couple pounds, and we did a nice job there. But there was also the other side of the ball, and we had to kind of balance that out. But at the end of the day, if we just did a little bit better job executing to get those first couple first downs and get into a little bit of rhythm of the drive, we would have done better.
All right, that's it for this virtual press conference with Coach Day. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Quarterback Justin Fields will be next. So if you want to just hang on for a second while we're waiting for him to get set up.
All right, that was head coach Ryan Day talking there. Like they said, Justin Fields will come out momentarily. He is getting ready. Justin, what did you think about what coach had to say?
I think the thing that stood out to me was he said that Justin Fields wasn't 100% in this game. I'm curious to know where he was percentage-wise, how healthy he felt, how his ribs were affecting or not affecting the way that he played. But overall, it's kind of what we expected. He said he's proud of the senior group, proud of the way that they played and the way that they conducted themselves, despite everything that went on. All of the stuff to have a season, to get here in the first place, to fight through that, guys that were off or had to miss games because of COVID or through injuries. A lot of what he had to say was just complimenting his team, but also complimenting Alabama. I mean,
we're
he
gonna
said
go to Justin. Actually, right now they started the.
We didn't get the job done. I think my injury, I mean, of course I could have been healthier, but I was healthy enough, and I was able to be out there. We just weren't.
Our next question is from Stephen Hellwagon. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Justin, just wanted to ask you in regards to preparation for this game, were you able to practice the last several days somewhat unbridled, or was there a limitation on what you could do this past week leading up to it? And beside that, just perhaps if you could just reflect on what this 2 years at Ohio State's meant for you.
I was able to practice towards the beginning of the week of last week. I had to miss a couple, but these last 2 years have been great. Made a lot of friendships, made a lot of brothers. I'm gonna always, miss seniors. Last game, I know they definitely wanted a different outcome, but I'm gonna miss everybody.
Our next question is from Nathan Baird. Nathan, go ahead with your question.
Justin, it seemed like they ratcheted up the pressure a little bit there, even in the first half, disrupting you a little bit. Just what did you feel like they were doing that was most effective and made it difficult for you guys to operate?
I feel like they did a good job executing our defense. Of course, they have great players, great athletes, and they have a great defense coordinator, so they did a good job doing that.
Next question is from Austin Ward. Austin, go ahead with your question.
Justin, how much do you think it impacted you guys and what you wanted to do offensively when Trey went out?
Of course, Trey going out. Of course, he was hot these last a few games, but we have a mentality of competitive excellence. And you know, when one man goes down, we have to bring up the next man. But of course, we would have Trey out there. You know, he's a baller, he's a warrior, but you know, he wasn't able to be out there and play with us. So of course, maybe he would have made a difference, maybe he wouldn't have, but you know, with or without him, we still gotta execute.
Our next question is from Bill Landis. Bill, go ahead with your question.
Justin, as you were making your way off the field there, it seemed like you were stopping and talking with a lot of people, but I'm just curious what your message was, particularly for some of the young guys that you had a moment with who you know have to take this loss and I guess find a way to use it going into next year.
I mean, yeah, I was just telling young guys that, you know, they have a lot more years here left, and I was just telling them to remember this feeling, you know, never let it happen to them again. You know, of course they were down. You know, they have time left. They have time to work. So I just encourage them to, you know, get back to work as quickly as possible and just remember this feeling walking off the field with the loss. You know, it doesn't really happen that much here at Ohio State. So I just told them to remember the feeling.
Our next question is from Carter Hill. Carter, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Justin, how did you, I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but how overall did you feel coming into this game? And you talked about how well their defense had been playing, and what did you see overall from their defense as the game progressed on?
How did I feel coming into the game, and what did I see overall from their defense?
Yes.
I felt pretty confident coming into the game plan, you know, planned out, but you know, they executed better than we did. So, you know, of course, Bama's a great team. They're great, and yeah, we just got to be better.
We have time for one more question for Justin. Pranav Rama, go ahead with your question.
Justin, a tough loss for the team today. How will this motivate you in the offseason?
It's motivated me a lot, you know. We didn't get the turnout that we wanted to. We didn't get the result that we wanted, but that's just going to make us work harder. You know, this team deals with that adversity very well. We've been through a lot of adversity this past year, so I think we're going to use it to just get back up and just work our butts off the road. So, yeah.
All right, that is our last question for quarterback Justin Fields. Justin, thanks for joining us. We'll have on this Zoom call next cornerback Shaun Wade. Take a minute to get him set.
That was Justin Fields wrapping up his questions from reporters there.
All right, Shaun is here.
Shaun Wade is now
ready to
taking the
go.
podium.
I'll take our first question from Nathan Baird. Nathan, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Shaun, just the way Alabama was able to consistently get the ball out in space and break things off in the first half, I guess, especially Devontae Smith. Just looking back on it, why do you think that was so open for them just continuously through the first half?
Really, they just gave him the ball in open space and he made plays. He's a great player. And they had a great scheme and they just made plays. I heard Justin say the same thing. They just came out and played us today. So.
Our next question is from Austin Ward. Austin, go ahead with your question.
Shaun, when you look back now at all the challenges in your decision to come back, you didn't get what you most wanted, which was this national championship. Was it still worth it for you? Look back on this last year for us.
Oh yeah, definitely was worth it. I see myself growing as just growing as a man, and just the team and all the young guys growing as a man. I'm just happy we were part of the team and all the things that we went through, the adversity, and I'm happy I came back, and I'm just glad we got here. I'm upset I didn't get the win, but I'm definitely happy I came back, and I'm just happy to be with this team and accomplish some big things with this team. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of everybody. So.
Our next question is from Cameron Buford. Cameron, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Chief. I got a two-parter here. Would you give your recruiting pitch to all those listening? That's my first question. And then about the time difference. You guys played your 7 games versus their 12 games. Do you feel there was a difference in either team being up to peak performance tonight?
You could say that, but at the end of the day, we both in the same predicament. We both made the national championship, so we both got to play our best games. And yeah, we played 7 games. They played 12, and they played more games. They have more experience and us, with more chemistry. So you could say that, but at the end of the day, we both made the national championship. That's not an excuse. That's nothing. At the end of the day, we both just outplayed us today. And you said the recruiting pitch.
Yeah, recruiting pitch for those listening.
Oh, yeah, we got a great program here, and just the brotherhood is very, very strong. We went through a lot of adversity with the season getting canceled, to the season coming back, to just games getting canceled and not playing enough games and everything. We went through a lot of adversity, and just shows that how much we fight. Even today, just not giving up. Everybody just kept on playing. We just kept on playing, and we just kept on fighting. So at the end of the day, just for all the people that's looking at Ohio State, just really look clearly, and it's a great program. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Our next question is from Carter Hill. Carter, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Sean, you touched on it a minute ago. Obviously, this was a very interesting season. What do you and the team what do you personally and what do you want the team to be remembered for in this 2020 season?
Just all the adversity and how much we fought. At the end of the day, the season was canceled, and we didn't have a season. So, everybody was down, and we went through a whole September where we just didn't know, and they ended up having a season. And we had camp during school. Nobody has ever done that where you have camp during school. And it's just crazy how much we just stayed focused and just kept on fighting every day. Then we had 3 games. And then after that, we had Big Tens, and we didn't have enough games. Everybody was doubting us. So we just kept on fighting. I'm very, very proud of this team. I'm glad James Smith got the season back, and the Big Ten commercial let us have a season. And just very proud. Really looking forward to next year with all the young guys that's going to be big games with Cam Brown, Seven Banks, and Josh Proctor, and whoever they play in that secondary. So I'm very proud of them, and just really, really looking forward to their season next year.
Okay, one last call for questions for Sean. Just a reminder to use the raise your hand function if you have a question. All right, next we'll go to Stephen Hellwagon. Stephen, go ahead with your question.
Sean, I know the game just ended, a half hour ago, and if you're not ready to make a declaration or whatever, it seems pretty obvious that you came back for one more year. But is this definitively your last game at Ohio State, or do you still want more time to consider it before the deadline a week from now?
I really can't say. I do want to come back and everything. I have to go to talk to my parents. It is upsetting that we got here and we just didn't accomplish the goal, and that just been my goal for this championship and just win big games like these. So I'll just go back with my parents, go talk to them, and then we'll just go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we will let Sean go. Sean, thank you very much for joining us. For everyone else, that's it for this particular Zoom post-game virtual news conference. A transcript.
All right, that is it for the Buckeyes this season. Justin, what'd you think about what Sean had to say? They've got about a week or so, they said, until these guys have to declare for the NFL draft.
Yeah, there's about a week deadline. Usually guys will announce, the next day or two what their plans are. I can't imagine that Sean would come back. He was just about ready to go to the NFL this year. He even committed when the season was off, and then when they put the season back on, he decided to come back. But you'll have a lot of guys that are going to either declare one way or the other if they're going to stay in college or if they're going to head to the NFL and try to impress people on the next level. So we'll see. I mean, we're going to have some stuff with Coach Conley tomorrow about who's staying, who's going, and what this season meant as a whole to Ohio State and where this falls in Ohio State history. But if you look back on the season, I think you'd have to say that this was a great season just because it happened and Ohio State, won another Big Ten championship, beat Clemson, got to the national championship. That is by all stretch of the imagination, a very good season for any college football team. I know Ohio State fans and the standard at Ohio State is winning a national title. That's where the bar is, and that's why Ohio State is so good. But looking back on the season, they're going to consider this a huge success for all the reasons I just stated.
And I'm just happy it made 2020 a little sweeter to have something to watch, something to look forward to every Saturday, and something to cover with you guys. So,
what's your perspective, Christine, from an Ohio State fan and someone that went to the school, what this season meant to people that are in this community, in this town?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here, Ohio State football is everything. It's really hard. It was very difficult to because I'm not a sports reporter. So I'm an Ohio State reporter, but I report from the fan side of things. And so not being able to be out there and not report on what I'm used to reporting on and covering what I'm used to covering, it was definitely a downer. Certainly, but I'm just looking forward to getting back to normal and having a normal football season next year. I think I'll just be very excited, as a fan, as a journalist, as a reporter, to get back out there kind of and doing what we normally do. I know obviously there was a lot of football to cover for more traditional sports reporters like you and Jared and Whitney, but it's hard for me to do that without the whole fan side of things as well, and I think that's kind of the different perspective I bring. So I definitely struggled, but I know next year's going to feel really, really sweet, and I am looking forward to being out there, being on the sidelines again for sure.
I think that's a great point. It gives everybody, myself, you, everybody, fans, players, coaches, a greater appreciation for the game and just getting to play it and be there and experience this thing with other people, this thing that, brings everybody together, the town, the community. Everybody rallies around the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I think it really shows people how much football means to people, getting to experience this together, and how much appreciation that they should have for it, when it's almost taken away from you, and things were taken away, not getting to go to the game, skull session, tailgates, like you said, being there with your own people and getting to experience that. I think going forward, there will be a new level of appreciation that there wasn't before.
Sports are meaningful in every size of town. It's not just
No
kind of,
doubt.
I feel like a lot of people sometimes feel that sports might be lowbrow. That is definitely not the case. In Los Angeles, in New York City, in Chicago, especially, in Columbus, mid-sized cities like us, sports are still a very, very high priority because of the community that it generates. It's not just a small community kind of thing. It makes a large community smaller because you have something to cheer for together. So I'm just really happy I got to experience it. But I think next year will be even sweeter. So.
And even just what it can do for those kids who are playing. I mean, you look at a guy like Haskell Garrett, who nearly lost his life, getting shot in the face, and then fast forward to this moment, and he was the highest graded defensive lineman in all of college football.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't write a script that Hollywood wouldn't accept that because they would think it's too unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
The things that these guys went through to have a season and perform the way that they did and improve their draft stock, or even just to grow closer to the coaches and the players that they're with day in and day out. I think that, whether a guy goes to the NFL, stays at Ohio State, or if this was a player's last game because they're a senior, all of it is worth it in the end because of what it does for them as a character building thing and as a maturation thing for these college guys. Because you have to remember, these are kids.
They're kids.
18, 19, 20, 21-year-old. Remember yourself when you were that age.
Yeah, I
and
wasn't.
what these guys go through.
I wouldn't have been as poised in front of, despite the fact that I did have practice in front of a microphone when I was their age, I wouldn't have sat down and had the maturity that they did at, 19, 20. I mean, whether you love sports or you hate sports, all the way from the coaching staff to the players, to a small business that revolves around the sports season, it changes lives, and it is a huge economic and community building thing for everybody. So I'm glad that we got to have it this year. So
Yeah, and I think all Ohio State fans should be proud of the way that this team played this season.
I'm so proud. Absolutely. I'm so proud. I'm kind of reading some of the comments, and I'm just a little bit taken aback at the anger some people are having towards the players and the coaches. I saw nothing but an amazing game by an amazing team. But Alabama was just, like you said, a once in a lifetime kind of offense. My gosh, that's like my only takeaway from it is how amazing Alabama was. And I don't think anybody could have stopped them. Nobody could, because Ohio State was the #2 team. They could not be stopped.
Yeah, I think part of that is just, the pain of getting to this moment. It's hard enough to get to a national championship game. The last time Ohio State was here was that 2014-15 season. And it's so hard to get these opportunities and to play in those games. And when you fall short, you feel that pain and you go through it. But at the end of the day, you have to also remember how much it takes to get there and how good you have to be a top 2 team playing for a title. And, Alabama had a historically good offense, one that's unrivaled in college football history, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
I'm one to get over things kind of quickly.
Yeah, I don't think
I was texting a friend from Alabama, and she's like, "Hey, just checking on you. How you doing?" I get over things pretty quickly as far as sports goes, because I know the next season is right around the block. I mean, we're gonna have the spring game here in 5 months potentially, and in 8 months we'll have a new season.
Yeah.
So I was kind of over it, not over it, but I had made my peace with it, because I am a passionate watcher of the games. But about a halftime, I was like, all right, that's how it's gonna go. I'm all right.
Yeah, and you have to remember, I mean, Ohio State's defense performed really well against Clemson, which also has a really good offense. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like Ohio State's defense was just bad. You know what I mean? They weren't bad the whole
No.
season. They have a good defense, but Alabama's offense was just that much better. And it wasn't just Alabama's offense was better than Ohio State today. Alabama was better than everybody every single game this season. So look at the season as a whole
I'm thinking of
and
all
think
the
about what Ohio
Alabama
State did.
all of the Alabama championship teams that we have seen over the years, and that offense, I think, would have spanked every single one of them.
I agree. I think this was a great offense. Ohio State had to have a near perfect game just to be close in this one, and that wasn't the case. And it's a hard pill to swallow right now, but I think moving forward, this is going to be a really good thing. And you heard Justin Fields talk about what he said to the young guys on the field. He was just like, get back at it as soon as you can and remember this moment, because you don't want to be here again. And I think that's going to be the case. Who steps up for him and for other guys who are going to leave the program, it's anybody's guess. But that's the beauty of college football.
Yeah.
Everything that ends is new again, in the fall.
The sun will rise in the morning, and
Yes.
we'll have the NFL draft, and you'll be able to watch your favorite Buckeyes in the NFL, and you can turn on the NFL over the next few weeks and still watch some of your favorite Buckeye players.
And then in 6 months, you're going to have some new favorite players that you didn't even know about.
Exactly. So it's a cycle. That's the great thing about college football, is that it's cyclical. We'll start this over again, and then we'll get excited again, and we'll do it again. We'll be
Yes.
okay.
Let's do it.
All right, Justin. Thanks, everybody, for being with us this evening. We will post this full show on NBC4i.com if you want to re-watch the interviews with Ryan Day, Justin Fields there, and Sean Wade at the end. You can, and thank you for being with us all season. We really appreciate it. Stick with us as we watch who's going to the NFL draft as they make their announcements over the next week.